So, we've just been treated to a bunch of good news about Rome Remastered and its modding potential. Essentially, everything the community has been asking for and more has been unlocked, and pretty much every limit you can think of has been lifted. So that means it's time for another interview with the modder Ahowl, one of the creators of the mod Rome Total Realism Imperium Surrectum, or RIS for short. Welcome back, Ahowl.
Good to be back. Nice to see you again, or I guess talk to you
Yeah.
again. And yeah, really exciting stuff. And I'm ready to get into it.
All right. So, this new patch essentially contains what modders have wanted from the beginning, right? So, lifted limits, increased logging, streamlining of some of the complex files like the EDB, improved AI and pathfinding, some unlocking of our ability to edit the battle AI and actually give certain factions unique battle AI. So, a mix of things that we expected and some things that we probably never even thought were possible, right? So, Ahowl, which aspect of the new patch has you most excited in particular, especially in regards to Imperium Surrectum?
Well, right now, the forefront of my mind, and it's probably at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, is factions. I really
Right.
am just excited to see how many factions we can fit in. It's been a dream of mine. Like when Rome 2 came out, it was kind of like, man, when Rome Total War had this. And, I always wished for just the 31 factions of Medieval 2 Total War. I was like, if they could just give us that one day, I'd be happy. And we just have to, deal with it. Well, now it's unlimited. And like, it's kind of like, oh my God. So I think of me myself. I could probably list out like 40 to 50 factions that like legitimately could make sense for the starting time frame of our mod. And then you can think of like emergent factions and super factions and shadow factions. And it's just like, whoa, like you can really kind of like play your own history sandbox game through the Middle Ages, I guess, if
Hmm.
you wanted to. And it's just exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of people would agree with you about the factions, the essentially unlimited faction limit now being the most exciting part because, of course, like you said, it would have been nice if they lifted the faction limit to the medieval 2 limit, but making it almost unlimited. Essentially, you can have so many emergent factions. This will make barbarian invasion a lot more interesting, right? With what people can do with
Pretty much,
that.
yeah. You could
Yeah.
you I guarantee there's going to be a mod that runs Rome Total War into Barbarian Invasion. Like somebody's going to do it. It's going to be, you start off with the Julii, the Scipii, and the Brutii with the Senate, but you have a way, and this is entirely possible for any of those that are listening. With the capabilities we have, this is entirely possible to run that campaign and have each of the Barbarian Invasion factions um, available to appear in the game somehow, some way. For instance, there can be triggers that will change the Parthians to the Sassanids. There are triggers where you can change your Julii empire that you've created into the Western Roman Empire. Um, and then that can spawn the Western Roman Empire rebels. And then when that happens, maybe you have the Huns spawn. Like boom, 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 boom. It's like one thing after another. That is an epic campaign. And you just think about
Yeah.
it. What if you have like this Scythian empire that you created and the Huns appear? Whoa, how are you gonna deal with that? It's just like so much possibility.
Yeah, and there's so many triggers now with the new scripting where things can, have a semi-random chance or they could be triggered by taking certain settlements or taking certain groups of settlements, right? And that allows for so many possibilities. Like, yeah,
It's insane.
yeah,
Now, with the factions, I think that's like the main one, but there's so many things to be excited about. And one of the things that I was asking for the most this entire time was cultures. I was like, if you're gonna expand, if you're gonna give us more factions, you got to give us more cultures. I was very adamant because in the base game you had 6 cultures and you could always mod in a 7th, but it was so basic. You had like Roman, Greek, and then you had barbarian, which is like the most annoying culture because you know your history and you know your cultures. Um, Iberians and Dacians, they are not the same, not even close.
Yeah.
Yet, they're lumped in. And so I was like, you got to give us more cultures. And in giving us more cultures, they were actually able to do so much more. So not only can we have unlimited cultures, but we can now edit, and it's just for each culture individually, how much population is needed before a settlement is upgradable,
Yeah.
how much population before squalor starts appearing, so we can modify squalor, we can
Hmm.
modify distance to capital, and it's like it's so cool that like we ask for like these big things, but as the developers were unlocking these big things, they came across all these little things that they unlocked as well. And it's just like things that I didn't really think about. I never really thought
Yeah.
about modding the distance to capital, but then you have to think about like these big, huge maps that we want to make. It makes it really hard for us,
If you can't change that, yeah.
yeah, because it's about distance to capital is based off tiles. So, Rome to Antioch in vanilla, okay, not that big of a deal. Rome to Antioch and let's say our RS2 size map, that's a huge deal. And it's like, okay, well, we need to make distance to capital relative to the map. That was never possible in original Rome. It caused a lot of issues. And so that's the other big one. And I think it's going to be more of a modder's treat than a player's treat, but it's going to make it a better game for the player.
Yeah.
Uh, Another one is religions.
Yeah,
So
religions. That's what I had been asking for a long time. Yeah.
yeah, why don't you get into that? Because I mean, we have our ideas for RIS, but I mean, this speaks directly to what you're doing for chivalry.
Yeah, exactly. So, medieval mods for the original Rome, they only used three religions, right? Because in original Rome, only three religions could actually like have an impact and change like public order and things like that. But now, with the new patch for Rome Remastered, you can have unlimited religions. And they even unlocked, like you said, so many small things that we didn't even think of. Like you can have religion groups. So if you're a member of a religion of that group, like you could cause less unrest, right? Compare with
Right.
religions of that same group. And if there's a different religion group, the unrest caused is can be much more. And these are all editable, right? So original chivalry had like Christianity, Islam, paganism, heresy, right? Which is so limited for something like the medieval period, and even for like barbarian invasion, that's so limited, right? Like
Uh-huh.
there's the mod Ruina Rome, the Invasio Barbarorum mod, and it has so many religions, but only some of them have an impact on public order. At least that's how I understand it, right?
Yeah.
So now they can all have an impact, and that impact is moddable. You can have the groups like heretics versus heathens, right?
Yep.
And it's so cool that I could do that. So I could make different groups like Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, and then lump them into the group Christianity, right? So they don't cause as much unrest to each other, right? So that unlocks so many possibilities we never even thought of.
But
And
then you can look at like
yeah,
CK2 or CK3 and be like, okay, you got your Cathars and your Waldesians and your your
yeah,
Necio. You can start getting really crazy with that, and that's like, that is, ooh. I mean,
yeah, you can have
medieval,
as many religions as you want and make it really interesting.
right? Who's asking for medieval 3? I mean, come on, we got this now.
Yeah, we don't need that. We don't need it.
You can go focus on some other things. Let the modders make medieval 3, Everybody's clamoring for it. Well, I'm sure enough modders will come on board and they'll make a medieval mod out of Rome, which will satisfy all those medieval fans' hearts. For RAS, it's
Mhm.
kind of like we've just been throwing the idea around about like maybe converting the religion aspect, or the religion feature and combining it with the cultures, because religion was a thing in our time frame, but it was
Yeah.
more paganism everywhere. So Christianity came way down the road, and Islam even further than that.
Hmm.
So for us, it's kind of like, okay, well, there was just so at the time of Rome's kind of uprising into a huge power, there were just cultures everywhere. Like there were so many different cultures and subcultures. It's kind of like let's gosh, what's the word? Represent that. And so you think you have like a Roman culture, but you look at the Italian peninsula, you have Umbrian, Oscan, Samnite. I mean, Samnite is Oscan, so it's kind of like those
Yeah.
groups are so helpful. But then you have like um, oh, I don't know, Etruscan, and then you have all the like Celtic. Do you want to just be one big Celtic thing, or do you want to separate, the Gauls and the Gallic, the Britons and the Britannic, and Galatians and there's
Yeah.
just
So
so
like how can you
yeah,
make it really hard for Rome to conquer like Germania
that
or Scythia? Like you can
right,
utilize that new religion mechanic totally.
right. You can make it so like where Rome has maybe a really easy time conquering Italy, but as soon as they start conquering Celtic lands, it's revolt, revolt, revolt. And that's historically accurate. If you look at the Roman conquest of Cisalpine Gaul, the Boii and the Insubres, I mean, they fought and fought and fought, and they joined Hannibal, and they fought and fought and fought. It took a long time for the Romans to really subdue them, and it took a lot of colonism and a lot of subjugation, a lot of annexation, a lot of killing,
Yeah, and you know, this
a
is
lot of slavery.
yeah, and this is a good segue, I think, to the new reforms that are possible, right?
Oh
Because
man,
reforms have also been unlocked, and you can like simulate this development like super difficult in the early period for Rome to conquer Gaelic territories, right? Due to that cultural issue and difficulty subduing them. But then as you move along, you can use this reform mechanic to simulate
yeah.
that, right?
So another thing that's interesting about the Roman conquest of Cisalpine Gaul, which, I'm not too brushed up on my history, but if I remember this correctly, once the Romans conquered Cisalpine Gaul, they started utilizing chainmail.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, well, the reason is Celts had chainmail before. Romans saw how efficient it was, and like in Roman fashion, they always took what their enemies did best and incorporated it into their own military system. I mean, if you look at the Roman military system, it's an amalgamation of all kinds of different cultures into one, from the Italics to the Celts to the Iberians
Hmm.
and to the Greeks, and they use all these cultures, have breastplates and bronze cuirass, and then, next thing you know, you conquer Cisalpine Gaul and you subjugate it and you get all the cities in that area to be Roman. That could trigger a reform to where all of your Hastati and Principes now have chainmail.
Hmm.
And that's something we could have never done. We had one Marian reform in the past. And on top of that, you have to script all these crazy reforms. And sometimes these scripts didn't even fire. And it
Right.
was like, do the reforms even work? I remember time and time again, like on TWC, whether it be Europa Barbarorum, Roma Surrectum, or Rome Pluralism, it's like, the reform's not working. The reform isn't working. Is the reform working? How do I get this unit? And it's kind of
Yeah.
like, gosh. And so now you can have an unlimited Marian reforms. Now, that's the internal name. Obviously, you can rename those
Yeah.
Marian reforms,
Yeah.
anything. So think about Sparta. Sparta had a deep, deep change toward the end of their history, where they went from hoplite to phalangite.
Hmm.
The Seleucids had military reforms. The Ptolemies, Parthia, Armenia, even I believe.
Pontus.
Um, Pontus, yeah, with Mithridates. I mean, even before Mithridates, a lot of people think Pontus always had phalangite units. That's not true. They had very localized troops
Yeah.
for a long time. Then they got kind of Greek, and the Mithridates came along and introduced like scythe chariots and legionaries. This is all possible now. And so
Yeah.
as a player, it's going to keep you involved in the game longer because there's goals to get. You want to conquer certain areas so that your military can have certain reforms.
Exactly. And you know, like this is one area where Medieval 2 was always a little stronger than Rome, like that sense of progression, right? Like technological progression and things like that. I'm talking about base game here, right? There was something to
Right.
work towards. But now with these unlimited reforms, there's so many possibilities. We can do essentially anything we want, right?
Yeah, and so that's another segue into something even more cool,
Yeah.
which goes along with the reform. Who needs Medieval 2 Total War anymore when we now have multiple models per unit? Yes, you heard me right.
Oh, yes,
We
that's
can
true. Yeah.
now give multiple models to a unit. So that means you can have multiple variants of the same unit. You can have a unit where half of the soldiers have a scutum and the other half of the soldiers have a hoplon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even if you don't go that extreme, something that you will see in RIS is you'll see that our Hastati and Precapes for this next release all have different shields, like variants on their colors. So it's just cool. Like it's just like Medieval 2, and it's just like another thing that's out there that seems to draw a lot of attention, and people still, it's still quote unquote better than what Remastered can offer right now. But we can now mimic and basically do the same thing as Rome 2, where we can have variation of the
Mm-hmm.
same unit, but multiple different variations in that unit. No more clones.
Mm-hmm.
No more clones in Rome Total War. That was how many people said, well, Rome Total War is cool and everything, but I really don't like those clones when I can play Medieval 2 Total War or I can play Rome 2 and I just need some variety. Well, guess what? Now you have it.
Yep.
So why aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. And you showed my bias there because I always talk about the campaign stuff, but you're right that the variety in the units, that's going to be something a lot of people are really excited about, and a lot of mods are going to take advantage of for sure. Because like if you're porting an old mod, you can still take advantage of that and get unit variety even if you're using old units that are clones, right?
Yep.
Like RIS with the ported Roma Surrectum units, right?
Yep.
And like Rome Remastered, of course, does have the variety and the ethnic units. But if you are um, porting, right, now this model variation is going to make all of that a lot easier, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I think people need to understand that we've done our research, we've looked deep into the game files, and you know, the ethnic variations that Rome Remastered has are
Yeah,
wonderful,
yeah,
and we're eventually going to make use of that one day. The problem is the workload. That is a lot
yeah.
of work.
It's very complicated. I've looked at that code, and not for all. And since it's purely cosmetic, right? It's something that'll
Right?
happen way down the line, right?
Yes, and I think that in RAS we've basically said what's more important, taking a ton of time and focusing on that for all the units that we already have, or doing shield variations, helmet variations, tunic variations, cloak variations. Yes, you still get the cloned faces, um, but we are doing everything that we can do quicker now. Like, I mean, shoot, you'll see. I mean, the screenshots, and you'll have the beta that we release.
Yeah.
You'll see with just the pre-Marian Romans, all pre-Marian Roman units in our next release are going to have variation,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just going to be able to experience that. And I think most of the time when you're fighting a battle, you're not zooming in on the faces of your units anyways. You're going
Exactly.
to just be hovering over, but it's going to be cool to see all the variants of the shield colors. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing. It's not the end. It's definitely not the end, but I think it's gonna keep people happy for a while. And then as we get deeper into development and as we add people to our team, which I'm really hoping we get some artists who want to get involved, because the more artists we have involved, the more the quicker we can get the ethnic variations into the mod. And we can
Absolutely.
combine the Rome Remastered look to our research. Right now, it's still a Roma Surrectum look, but slowly but surely, these Roma Surrectum units are getting better and better and better. Um, right, like we discovered PBRs, and
Yeah.
PBR textures have really enhanced the look of these old units. And really all they're missing is the ethnic variety, but I think it's worth focusing on other things now and then doing that way down the road. Um,
Because it's cosmetic. Yeah, exactly.
it's cosmetic, it's not mechanical, and I want a good game and a good challenge to the players out there instead of just something that's kind of cool to look at when you're not even looking at the faces most of the time in the battle. So definitely gonna happen not anytime soon, but you're gonna really enjoy the shield variation, the helmet variation, and everything else.
Yeah, like I remember, or I should mention, like Swagger has done an excellent job with that AI upscaling and the PBR
Yes.
enhancements. But like they look so nice now. Everyone's going to be really
Swagger, yeah,
happy.
Swagger. For those of you, listening, Swagger is our man at RIS who is in charge of all the lighting, all the weather, and all of he's done a lot of serious graphical work. The AI upscaling was done by a man named Starkgate. He helped with that. That was just to kind of get us going. Swagger basically took that and has run with it. The PBRs, the grit, the just the texture of the units and how they work with the lighting. They went from like super bright and colorful and kind of cartoony to like, whoa, like
Yeah.
that's pretty realistic looking. And remember, these are units that were made in like from 2007 to like 2010.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're more than 10 years old and they're being played and people are loving it and we're loving it. And now we're getting these shield variations. And it's just like, our main artist guy, Tone, he's like on a playground right now with these shield variations. And it's really cool to see. I mean, who would have thought that this would ever happen? I mean, I think people are going to really, really enjoy the variety.
Absolutely. And like Swagger also upscaled and did PBRs for um, Chivalry, which I'm porting. And the Chivalry units are even older than a lot of the Roma Surrectum units, but they
Yep.
look really nice. I'm surprised. I'm
Yep.
surprised they were able to hold up like with that AI upscaling. It is nice indeed.
And think about
Mhm.
this for the classic gamer. Maybe you're not a fan of the way the Rome Remastered units look, and you miss that vanilla classic Rome Total War unit. Look, it's not that hard to port the vanilla look. I'm not saying, but the OG vanilla look to your game. Make it a mod. Get PBR. Learn how to PBR textures. PBR all the textures of the original vanilla units. Won't take that long. There's really not that much compared to all these mods. And you could technically make a badass looking original Rome
Yeah.
Total War mod.
Yeah,
Those of
definitely.
you, those are the ones that are like, I like the original. I'm gonna stick to the classic. I don't care what remastered does. You can port the original to remastered. You can get the original look and port it to remastered and take advantage of all the features remastered has to offer. It's not that difficult. It's actually very easy work. You are living proof. You are not a modder. You didn't know much about modding. You just covered mods. And here you went by yourself, basically, and ported a very old mod by yourself to Rome Remastered, went through all the troubleshooting, had help here and there from the other NDA modders. But you, sir, have done this by yourself. And I think this is a testament to how easy it can be done. Just take a little discipline, a little creativity, and a little patience, and you can get it done. So for those of you that have made like maybe vanilla mods out there, like I made vanilla enhancement, and I've had, if I wasn't leading RIS and embroiled in the deep development that we are, and I was kind of doing my own thing, all right, I would port vanilla enhancement ASAP. And if anybody out there that wants to do it, please go ahead and do it. But I'm telling all of you that are listening, if you have a favorite mod out there, or if you just like vanilla, the look, just port it and
Mhm.
enhance it and make it your own and let others play it and be part of the modding community. It's really not that difficult and you will enjoy yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and Chivalry, it's not only an old mod, but it's big, right? So I've had to touch like every aspect of the game that could possibly have been like broken during the porting process, right?
Yeah.
And there are so many old mods that are not as big, and the porting process. I'm just going to say one thing about this before we move on. The most tedious part is the units because of the coding. Like you have to change the way the model's flexy stuff works. You have to remove the sprite parts. It's just a lot of manual stuff you have to do. But once you get past the units, it becomes a lot easier. That's for sure. Because everything else is just and the other thing is that name lists. Now the names have been detached from factions, right? So
Yeah.
factions can pull from different name lists.
Honestly, I might be a dummy,
Yeah.
but I still don't understand how that works. But I do understand it's like in OG names were basically you had your Greek cities names, and the
Yeah.
Greek cities faction would basically take all of these names and use only these names.
Yeah.
But let's say you give a faction only 5 names. Well, you're just going to see those 5 names popping all over the place with your characters,
Yeah.
and a risk of chance of CTDs. Um, Now what happens is you start off with that name list, but any faction can basically use any name um, if
I
needed.
guess. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
exactly. So this kind of
Um,
it increases stability.
yes, it basically increases stability. Now, if there's more to it, um, anybody at Feral listening to this, please put in the comments, you know, because that's the way the one is like, okay, like what's what's going on here? You look at the names file now, and you're just like,
When I first saw it, I was like, "What? Can we like toggle back to the old way?"
yeah. But I will say this, because I just added the Bosporan Kingdom into RIS,
And you just pull
and
from the Greek name
yeah,
list,
well,
right?
by the
Yeah.
time this video is released, the mod will be out. So at this time, I just put the Bosporan Kingdom into our mod, and I didn't have to assign them names. I just gave them the Greek cities names,
Yeah.
and that's pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, like if
Now,
if you're adding a lot of factions that are of like extremely similar culture, then yeah, it
yeah,
becomes really easy. Just setting up the file for the first time is really
yeah.
tedious. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, speaking of modability, if you want to add a new faction, just a basic new faction, nothing crazy. I mean, obviously, it's going to take a while if you want to make it fully fledged and unique and everything. But if it's just to add a faction, it takes about 15 to 30 minutes to add a faction.
Yep. Yep.
And there will be a guide. But I was amazed. So I woke up at 7. I started at 7:30. I needed to get ready for work by 8:30. By 8:30, the Bosporan Kingdom was in RIS. It took me an hour to it was just to troubleshoot some stuff. But I was doing some thinking. I was like, okay, now I've done this for the first time. Like once I kind of get churning, this will take like 15 to 30 minutes to get done per
Yeah.
faction. And it's like, whoa. Like, and here we were thinking like we're so used to these factions being a huge deal and they're impossible to add and probably so much hard code. Farrell cleaned all that up and it's like, okay, you can add it just as quick as anything. Like
Yeah, super
crazy.
nice. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, so if anyone just wants to add factions to vanilla, make every province its own faction if you want, you can totally do that. Go for it.
Totally
Um,
do it. Obviously they're not gonna be fleshed out, they're not gonna look good. not
Unless
going to
you
be
make
very
them.
playable. But
Yeah.
if you want to just have like an epic AI campaign, you can just simply make copies of every faction. You can split the Gauls into 8 different Gallic factions, the Germans into 6 different Germanic factions, and they're just copies of each other. And they all use the same faction symbols and banners. That's fine if you want. You just want to run this like crazy AI campaign, go for it. But obviously, if you want to really flesh them out, it's going to take a lot more time. But I'm just saying, like, just to get the faction in there, 15 minutes to get basically a blank slate faction into your mod to then modify it. Don't think it's like this big hassle to add a new faction. It was a very surreal faction. I'm surreal faction.
Yeah.
A very surreal feeling when I added the Bosporan Kingdom, which was the 22nd faction of our mod. And it's just like, whoa. And
Yeah.
then you got like Comstar, you have this Total Conquest mod. You've got 45 factions already. And who knows by the time he releases, who knows how many factions he's gonna add.
Yeah, like
So
every tribe you could ever want
yeah, that
is
guy's
in.
going crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, so many people ask for more factions, and yeah, we've got. You could wait. You can add 2 billion if you want. I mean, I don't
Something
recommend
like
it,
that.
but
I would not recommend it either, and don't ask me to. I will be dead before that can happen.
yeah, I
Um,
mean, if someone wants to make like an AI script or something that automatically adds 1 billion factions, let's see what happens. Someone make a video about that. That would be cool. But
yeah,
I'm not gonna
break,
do
please break, please break the engine.
that.
You know, I will say this. I mean, I've thought about this in the back of my mind for a while now. Since we've been following, obviously we've been NDA'd, and kind of just following along with Farrell. It's like when this gets dropped, this is going to be such a huge log of changes.
Yeah,
And once people read through all of it, the amount of requests that are going to come in, it's going to be crazy.
yeah,
And there's going to be factions that are going to be requested. We're going to say no to them, not because it's not possible. It's because why? And I think it's really going to come down to history and realism now. Like, for instance, Massalia. There's going to be a lot of people out there who want Massalia as a faction. But, I mean, after talking to our chief historians, Massalia offers nothing.
yeah,
And I think it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for some people that some factions just aren't going to be in because they offer literally nothing. I mean, eventually maybe we could add a Massalia faction, sure. But when we really went down into it and we talked about it and all the history and everything we knew about Massalia, they they might have like a hoplite unit, a skirmisher unit, an archer unit. We don't even know if they fielded cavalry.
yeah,
And it's just like, what's the value? And so it's going to come down to like all these. There's going to be a lot of factions requested. People are going to be starting requesting like crazy fact. Can you give us a Norse faction? Can you give us an Irish faction? Can you add the Huns? It's going to be like it. I think that's the thing that we're going to have to brace ourselves for, and even for you with chivalry.
oh
Can you
yeah.
add Wallachia? Can you add Saxony and all the different principalities of the Holy Roman Empire?
I
And it's like,
technically, I
yeah, technically it's possible, but is it good for the mod? And is it good for the player? I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I remember when we first released RIS on the day, like basically the day of release for Rome Remastered, and at the time, everybody was under the impression that we were going to get unlimited factions, which we are now getting. But back then, we didn't know. If you were to go on the Steam comments, the amount of faction requests, people were putting their entire list. I mean, there were these absurd factions that like you barely maybe heard of a few times, or like any people with top tens. Um, it's kind of like, wow. I mean, yeah, I mean, we definitely would love to add all these factions too, and maybe we will, but it's definitely going to take an order of precedence. There's a lot of important factions to add um, before we get to some of these very obscure looking factions. But I think that's the thing that modders have to brace for is the request. And for those of you requesting and you're not getting your way, just take up some time, learn, and go make it and make it your own. Because that way you are in control of what you want. You don't have to rely on other people to do it for you. You don't have to wait and expect other people to do it for you. If you really want Massalia as a faction, you love Massalia with all your heart, and they are your favorite faction of Rome 2. Maybe you played them in RS 2, and maybe you're just like, oh, I'm obsessed with Massalia. I'm a Massalia fan. You know what? Go ahead and make a sub mod of RIS, or make a sub mod, or make your own mod in vanilla. Um, I think I'm hoping that with this patch that there's a big modding community where people just start experimenting and making their own mods.
Definitely, definitely. So, where's Caucasian Albania, man? I'm not gonna forgive you.
Oh man, I know, and that's one of the best. Like you would probably out of all the people I know, you would be the one that knows the most about them. And then when I come to you like, hey man, we're making a Caucasian Albanian faction. What can you give me? I might get like a paragraph. Like
No,
here's
like
a couple units.
I'll write a paragraph and then I'll like disappear from the Discord for 3 months.
Right. It's like
And then
here's
I'll
a
come
couple
back and
units.
I'll say, where is it?
Right, yeah, it's like here's a couple units. Here's the one leader that we know existed. Here's that one city that we knew they controlled,
In the fifth
and
century
yeah,
AD. Yeah. No, no.
yeah, right. Like, and we believe that they were a little bit different from the Iberians and the Colchians. Great, can't wait to make that faction. Yeah, at that point, that's the thing is, if you put the pressure on the developers to start getting a little bit ahistorical, and then we're making Albanian militia, Albanian archers.
Albanian militia.
Albanian light cavalry and then pushing it forward as history and truth when it's not. And, it's just that's not something I would be interested in. Like, there's no such thing. There's no record of Albanian archers out there or Albanian slingers or Albanian skirmishers. It's all just, I think there was an Albanian cataphract unit. I'm trying to remember from whoever
Uh,
wrote it, but it was Pompey's campaign
yeah,
and
yeah.
he
Or,
fought them.
or
He definitely
cavalry.
fought
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
They had cavalry and they had skirmishers and they had
yeah. Definitely.
infantry. How do we know? Like, we don't have the Albanian heavy men, Albanian noble infantry. It's like, as much as I would love to make that a unit and let my creativity, okay, clothes from the area and weapons from the area, okay, yeah, we can guess that they had this unit, but that's that's just risky because then you can assume that any faction had any unit, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm challenging Mausolos, the description writer and historian, to write a 2-page description for Albanian spear militia. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny because like it's you think about this, we're laughing about this, but there's other mods in the past that have pushed out units that are completely like ahistorical. Um, there's like not a lot of evidence for a Celto-Hellenic hoplite, and that was like a huge unit in EB, and even RS2 had it. But like everybody wants, oh yeah, Massalia is possible because of you can get the Celto-Hellenic hoplites. Well, the historians are like, there's no record of these units. Like it's a creative unit. It's like a hey, well, Massalia and the Celts, they were close and everything. They must have intermingled. Actually, there was a very I from our Celtic expert, Genova 55, and our Greek expert Mosselos, there was very intermingling between the Greeks and the Gauls, except for trade. There was more intermingling with the Greeks and the Ligurians, but really they hired the Ligurians as mercenaries and they hired some Gauls mercenaries, and that's basically the extent.
Mhm.
There is not a lot of cultural interaction or cultural amalgamation, and it's like this kind of like perception that oh well, the Celts in the area adopted all the Greek ways of warfare, and the Greeks kind of adopted some Celtic ways of warfare. as much as you would want it to be true, it just wasn't true. And it's going to be hard to kind of balance that going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, I think we covered a lot of those bases and a lot of the things unlocked in this version. I mean, we can't cover 100% of it because just look at the patch notes. It's crazy. But I guess another thing I wanted to talk about was, we talked a while ago about, porting Chivalry, and I had this idea to do it, and you said I should. And then I just kind of figured it out from porting the map to porting the units, porting the factions and the art and all that. So, what other classic mods from the original Rome Total War do you think should be ported? Like, which mods do you think have the most to gain by being ported and then enhanced by Rome Remastered?
Rome Total Realism Platinum Edition.
Right.
That is the mod. That was a mod before Europa Barber Rome was a mod. It is the original Rome Total War main mod that everybody loved. It had its own website. It had its own Wikipedia. Everybody played it for about a year or two before other mods started coming out. It was the thing. And it had its own music. And it has got a place in my heart from when I was a middle schooler, high schooler. That would be the mod port for people who are a little, maybe they're not right. They're not really into RIS. I don't take
Mm-hmm.
any offense to that. If you're not into RIS, you're not into it. Um, Maybe you're growing impatient with RIS. Maybe there's some things that you want in RIS that just we haven't been able to add yet, but we're going to eventually. Like Bactria, Bactria we thought we were going to be able to add right away. Um, but because we need an entirely new unit roster, it's going to take a little bit of extra time. Rome for
Mm-hmm.
Realism Platinum Edition, they have Bactria,
It
and they
does.
have
Yeah.
their own map, and not the best map in the world, but hey, like that's a classic game, and I would love to see that ported, and then I would love to see those units with the PBRs, like
Yeah. I have
oh
no idea what they would look like. I guess they would look
talk
really
about
good.
nostalgia, like a nostalgic feeling, but with like an updated look. It's like, whoa. And those are my favorite units of Rome Total War and mods is the Rome Total Realism Platinum Edition units. And that's why when we were developing Rome Total Realism 8 about 3 4 years ago, my main one of my main rules was we are only going to use Rome Total Realism Platinum Edition units or units of similar style. And I combed through every mod that I could think of, and I pulled every model and texture that was like a Rome Total Realism Platinum Edition style. Because that style just meant so much to me. So Webbard and Warspite, two texture legends from like 2005. Those units that they made are just timeless. They're classic, and to see them updated and PBR'd and in a remaster, oh, dude,
Yeah.
I would definitely probably play that. So I would love to see that. Obviously, there's gonna be a lot of people clamoring for Europa Barbarorum. Uh, that would be a good one. I think you would probably need a little help on that one because that's just a huge task.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
that would be. I think the script would be the biggest issue with that. But I mean, being on remastered would help EB so much because EB's biggest problem is being like on the original Rome Total War with the RAM limitations and the
yep,
random
I run
crashes.
a lot.
And that was the biggest problem for RTR Platinum Edition too. Is the
Yep.
random crashes,
Um,
right?
Even though I never played it, Fourth Age Total War. Um, that's
Right.
a mod.
You're
I don't
right.
think you. I don't think you even reviewed that mod yet.
I have not reviewed it yet, but
Yeah,
I've mentioned it's my favorite fantasy mod or it's my favorite Lord of the Rings mod for any
I
Total
think.
War. Fourth Age
I
is really
think
good.
honestly, man. I hate saying this, but I would probably port Fourth Age before Rome for the Platinum Edition. But, but,
It
but,
would be
but,
harder. It would be harder, that's for sure.
That would be harder, and I think you would need Aradon to be with you on that one. Um,
Yeah.
he knows that game inside and out. I take it back. Rome Total Realism Platinum Edition first because it's easier. Get it out there for
Yeah.
those Rome Total War fans. Then do a fourth stage. I would do a fourth stage video to kind of give people kind of like, oh, this is a really cool mod. Look at all these things they could do with the original. Then you'd be like, and now I'm gonna work with Eridan and I want to get this ported over to Remaster, and there's even more stuff we can do to it now. It's gonna really, really please the Lord of the Rings community that you know, it's a small but very
I
I
wouldn't say
guess.
it's small. I would say that Lord of the Rings Total War community is quite
Oh,
big.
is
I
it?
mean, yeah, look at
I just
Third
don't see a
Age.
lot of
Yeah.
activity. I don't see a lot of activity on the Total War Center these days. So I always figured there was like maybe like a good group, like a small group of them that were like very dedicated to it. But yeah, you know what? You're right. I mean, Lord of the Rings itself is huge.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of it. I mean, I would. I don't know why I haven't played it yet. I'm sure if I played
Yeah.
it, I'd kind of get really into it. But I
Yeah.
think that would
Yeah.
be a good one. Uh, the Invasio Barbarorum mods for those DI
Absolutely.
players.
Absolutely.
I think that would be a huge. Yeah, I think you have a long list, and hopefully, my hope for you is that you get some assistance along the way to maybe get more mods ported quickly. Um, the more mods we can get out there that were like the classic Rome Total War mods, the more we're going to be able to broadcast how great this game is and how
Yeah.
playable it is and how flexible it is for everybody. I mean, and what people are going to do is they're going to be able to take their favorite mod now that's been on remaster, and they're going to be able to mod it now and not going to have to worry about the limitations anymore. And I don't know. I think it's just going to be we're just at the type of the iceberg as to what's possible. I think for the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to be a very moddable game, and
And I mean,
we're
look
going to
at
see a
this.
lot
We haven't even
of.
mentioned this, but this is something we should talk about. They unlocked it so that you can make different battle AI for different factions.
Oh yeah,
That's
and
incredible.
that's the thing. There's just so many things that have been done. Like that's one of the things I barely thought about because like I'm just so overwhelmed with new stuff. Um, but yeah, you can you can basically make it so the Parthians like play hit and run all game, all battle with you, tire you out, and finish you off their heavy cavalry. You can
Yeah.
make it to where the dynasty factions like the Antigonids and the Seleucids pin you down with their phalangites only, and then swing around their cavalry and
You can
hammer an
make it
end
so
over.
that like Celtic tribes just like rush out you with, I don't know, the
Right,
naked swordsman.
right. And I'm not saying that the battle AI is fixed. There's still Pharaoh hasn't come out and said we have completely redone the battle AI and all the crazy little dumb things that I used to do are done. No, it's still going to be the Rome to the War battle AI.
But it's a
Okay,
lot better.
but
It's a lot
but it's a
better.
lot better and it's moddable and we can make it as close as we can to the newer games. And anybody that's still saying, well, the battle AR is this, well, you know what? You can go kick rocks because at this point, you're just a very negative person and nothing will ever be good enough for you. So, um, for those that really want an AI challenge, the modders now have a lot of control and say over how challenging these battles are going to be.
Hmm.
And I haven't even looked into the file. I have no idea what it's going to be like. It's going to be something that comes along as we go. But from what I've heard and from what I've seen and what Carol has told us, like I said, I think it's not going to be like I think in Rome for the War, it's kind of like you could edit the formations
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
enemy started out with, but many times the AI would be programmed to way to put that formation right back to a generic thing. They just attack you head on. It didn't matter if you were facing a Greek faction, a barbarian faction, or an Eastern faction. It was just like,
Yeah.
this is the way the Rome Total War AI works.
Yeah. So now we have
I'm
more
taking
control of that, and that's going to
it's like
be really
you're
cool.
facing the same army, you're facing the same enemy with different colors.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, like I've been fighting the Greeks for so long, but now that I've finally conquered the Greek areas, I'm going to start fighting the barbarians in Parthia. It's like, wow, they fight a lot different. I gotta change up my tactics. I need to change up my unit roster to combat them. That's the hope. We haven't looked into it enough to really determine, but that's kind of like what we believe is possible going forward.
Yeah, and then one other thing we should mention
Yeah,
that's
there's so
pretty
many
big.
things.
I know there's so many things, but one other thing we should touch on is the fact that now the campaign AIs, there were these set combinations, the comfortable Napoleon and those
Oh yeah.
those AI sets. Now those are unlocked as well. You can make custom
Yep.
ones. You can adjust
Yep.
them, right? You cut out for a second.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you can basically control or kind of nudge even further the AI into their unit training. So like Parthia. Okay, maybe you give
Cavalry.
it a couple
Yeah.
you give it a couple of infantry units, but you don't want Parthia coming at you with a bunch of spear units. That's like deflating. You're like, what the heck? It's more like I want Parthia to come out with all these force archers and cataphracts. Um, well, we can now have further control. We don't want the Romans spamming skirmishers. We want the Romans spamming legionary units.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want the Gauls spamming slingers. We want them spamming infantry. And we want the Greeks to spam hoplites. And we want the Dynasts to spam pikes. And we just want them to supplement with cavalry.
Or not
So
not spam pikes, but at least have like more balanced.
yeah,
more.
yeah, they want that to be the meat. And like I think one thing as a modder and like, especially when I was doing VE mod, it's like I'd have to do AI campaign after AI campaign to kind of figure out like what do I need to do to have the AI train balanced armies? Because it'd be like, oh, look at the Greek cities. They have like this huge stack and they're laying siege to a city. Let's see what kind of army they have. And it was all heavy peltasts. And you're just like, wow. Or it's like when you're playing vanilla, you're playing the Seleucids and Egypt is sieging you. And Egypt had like three huge armies. It's full of peasants, Nubian spearmen, slingers, and chariots. And you're just like, I'm so sick of fighting this army. Like, why Egypt? I mean, obviously it was a horrible faction in vanilla, but you know, you're creating phalanx pikemen and you're getting good units, and they're still throwing peasants and Nubian spearmen at you. And you're just like,
Yeah,
they have
like
so much.
a good
They have
example of what you're
better
talking
units.
about. Yeah, like a good example of what you're talking about is the Eastern factions, right? Like if you're fighting Pontus, you want to see like those spear units, the infantry, some cavalry, some chariots, right? But then if you're
Mhm.
facing Parthia, you don't want to see like that infantry part, or you want to see more cavalry, more horse archers, and now we can do that, right?
Yeah, we can, and it's again, it's another thing that we haven't really looked into a lot because it's just so many things to work on right now. But it's like on our list to really tackle. And that's the thing, like honestly, like from a modern standpoint, this is a very overwhelming patch, and not in a really bad way. It's not in a bad way. It's just overwhelming. I mean, there is so much to think about, and I think it's important, like at RIS, that we take our time, and we continue laying a foundation, um, and then once we lay a foundation, we can start adding layers and layers and layers until we get super complex. I mean, the sky's the limit, and I think patience is key. Patience is key. For not only the players out there, but for the modders themselves. It's being patient, one step at a time, one feature at a time. And eventually, I mean, quite honestly, I mean, to see where we started May and now we're in October, we've got two big releases out. And we've come a long way in just a couple months. And that's impressive.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
with everything that's been given to us, it's gonna be like, wow. So I mean, if you're a modder out there or for Rome for the War, you want to get back into things now that like you see all this potential. please don't hesitate to find us on Discord and message me. Um, we are accepting new applications for people who want to like seriously contribute. Um, if you're a Rome 2 guy and you're like, wow, Rome Total War is really like stepping it up, or Rome Remastered, I should say, is really stepping it up. I want to see what I can do to help, especially if you're a 2D or 3D artist. Please do not hesitate to contact because um, with all the potential, we need more hands to help.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to a lot of these mod teams. Like there are some pretty really great artists that are working right on Rome Remastered mods. Like Kurdish Nomad is making the Lord of the Rings Total War mod, Total War Beleriand, and
Yep.
Tone and some others are working on RIS, but there aren't really too many like artists and modelers that are working on Rome Remastered mods. So I would say that's what these mod teams and me too for Chivalry. That's what we need. We need 2D artists, modelers who can make like symbols, unit textures. Because now that we have unit variety, we're going to need so many retextures and
Yep.
models to actually implement these things. So, yeah.
I, coding is one thing. Anybody can learn how to code Rome Remastered pretty quickly. There's a lot of guides out there. It's the graphics department that it kind of takes a little bit of a creative skill to be able to do. Now, I mean, honestly, anybody can learn how to do the graphics well enough, but it takes a lot longer to learn. And quite honestly, with all the beautiful things I've seen done from Medieval 2, Original Rome, and Rome 2, I know you're out there somewhere, people. Just try out Rome Remastered, make a couple banners and symbols, maybe play around with some unit models and help us out. And you'll find that it's really not that difficult, and you'll have a lot of say in what you want to make and everything. Like we'll have stuff that we want done, but you'll have a lot of say in like how it's done. And
Hmm.
um, yeah, people like you, you need help with chivalry, and yeah, I think the hope is just like now that this patch is out, now that everybody knows what's possible, the hope is that this thing explodes and like really becomes something special. The all the hype that we had for it 6 months ago is now true. It's now here,
More.
and
We have
it
more
just
than
took
what we
time.
thought was
More, yeah,
possible. Yeah.
way more than what we thought. By the way, here's another thing we didn't mention. You can now have as many custom settlement models on the campaign map and as
Hmm.
many custom battle map cities on the battle map as you want.
Yeah.
So every single city in a map could have its own layout. And not only that, can it have its own layout, it can also have its own settlement model to make it unique from the others. That is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Before it was a real pain to do that, but now it's going to be, there are going to be so many possibilities. Like someone out there, make me um, custom map for Constantinople, please. I think everyone wants to see that.
Yeah. Honestly, for you, just somehow finding a way to get medieval 2 Total War buildings to work in remastered.
I think those are not going to work. I'm going to need if you're out there, I need someone who's a modeler who can make buildings. I need you, please,
Yeah,
please
yeah,
help. I can't port the chivalry buildings. Please help me.
that's not easy work. I don't even know how to do that stuff. And it's gonna take somebody who's kind of I don't know, like gonna take somebody who's got some special skills to help with that. That's some complex work right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and I'm sure RIS will like to add things like that as well, for sure.
Yeah, we do. We're trying not to think about that one too much because we
Right,
understand how
delay it
important
as
that is.
much as possible.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess yeah, this has been a pretty great discussion. So now, one last thing. What does the future hold for Rome Remastered?
Endless possibilities. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I think we've covered so much.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, just take everything that we've just talked about and think about what's possible. Um, you can do basically anything you want within everything. Let's just say this, like when Farrell came to us and we all kind of joined up in April and May.
Oh, you cut out for a second.
No, I'm just.
Oh, you're
Can you
thinking.
hear
Okay.
me? Oh,
Yes, yes.
yeah, I'm thinking. I know. I'm just like trying to remember when it was. I think it was after. I think it was like in the summer sometime. Actually, I think it was in
Hmm.
like June or July, where we basically just like were just sending a request, and they were just making this big list. So we had all these requests, these feature requests. We also had all these bug fix requests too, and we just had like this huge list. And the devs over two patches, the patch of 2.3, which I think is like, or 2.2, whatever it was, the one that gave us unlimited units and gave us unlimited models,
Hmm.
combined the barbarian invasion, Alexander, Rome for the War features, and gave us unlimited regions, which we should have covered that one. I mean, that's big news in itself.
Yeah.
Now it's just like old, boring news, but you would have told me that was possible back in April. I would have been like, oh my gosh, you don't even give me anything else.
Hmm.
I would have taken it. Uh, Now it's like, okay, that's nothing. But around like we re we had so many things requested, and I want to say that Farrell came through on like 85 to 90% of all those requests. I mean, there was a few things that were just utterly impossible for them to do, or they just had no time to do it. One of them
Yeah.
being like having a medieval 2 pool recruitment system.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
that was something I thought would be cool, but that would have taken a complete rewrite of the engine in certain capacity. And honestly, for everything that they did do, I was like, hey, you know what? That's fair. I understand. It's cool. Um, I mean, jeez, you got Dagovax in 1942 mod.
That's
You
gonna
got Curtis.
be pretty incredible
Yes,
on Rome Remastered. That's probably the mod that's gonna gain the most because, like, for me, it was super unstable on original
yeah.
Rome, but now with the lifted limits, it's gonna be a heck of a mod. That's for sure.
You got Kurdish Nomad with Valyrian Total War, which is like a Lord of the Rings, um, like first stage basically.
Hmm.
Uh, Before that area was sunk into the sea. Um, what else? You got you with Chivalry. You have two modding legends in Macaniane and Wild Dog. What's the mod that they're making called? Like that
Princes,
medieval.
princes, kings, and heroes. The medieval England.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Princess King and Hero, that like British Isles mod. That looks with their abilities. That is going to be a fantastic mod. So you have those, and then you have RIS, and you have Total Conquest by Commissar. I'm not sure if there's anything else big out there on Steam, but so you got your big historical mod, you got your gameplay mod and Total Conquest, you have your fantasy mod, and you have two medieval mods, and you have your World War II mod, and then you're gonna have all your ports.
Fantasy mods too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have all the ports that could be happening, and then like I said, I believe at the beginning of the video, I said that we're gonna have a mod that stretches from 270 BC to BI. Like
Hmm.
that's that's gonna happen. Someone's gonna do that. I'm telling you, somebody who's listening, do it. I want to see it. um, I will play it. That'd be so cool just to kind of keep that campaign going. You're like the freaking Numidians and you're conquering everything, and the next thing you know, the Slavs pop up. and the Burgundians, and you're just like, oh man,
Yeah, the
like
Numidian Slav War. I remember that
yeah, like what? Like let's go.
one. Let's go.
Like oh man, the Roxolani are here, and I'm playing as Spain. Like
Yeah.
let's freak go. You know, it's like gosh, just the combination of barbarian invasion and Rome Total War into one game. It's just that's I need to see that happen. But yeah, possibilities are out there. Endless RAS. It's going to be able to do everything Rome Total Realism did, everything Rome Resurrected did, everything Europa Barbara did, all these historical mods. RAS, it should be able to tackle everything.
Yeah.
And that was my dream and my hope. And it's going to be a reality that RAS is like the definitive mod for historical Rome, like a historical remastered experience. But I would encourage others to make their own historical mods too, because you might disagree with some of the stuff that we're doing, and I think that's fine. We want competition. We want to have others out there, and we'll be happy to help you. Our sources are free as long as you give us as long as you ask for permission. We're not going to be the people that are stingy and very protective of our work, because this is free in the first place. We don't get paid. But I would just encourage everybody out there listening who has a creative itch to start, to please start. And there's going to be guides out there and everything. And then as more stuff is being done, the community will even go closer. So I just think the sky is the limit. What do you think? What do you think is possible?
No, I think we touched all those bases, right? Because, I guess this is something we should mention. If people want to truly see like all the possibilities in terms of like the limit having the limits unlocked, go play the new version of Total Conquest with the 50 factions and the
Oh,
scripts and all that by Commissar, because that's going to show you like what you can do like on a mechanical level
yeah.
especially. So I think
Yeah.
that'll inspire a lot of people in terms of figuring out like what we truly can do, how much has been unlocked in the files, right? So I
Yeah.
think, we got to see those ports. Like you said, port of Fourth Age, that would be incredible because I think, Fourth Age is another mod. There are so many mods that are just crippled by being based on original Rome Total War. Like for me, with my modern system from 2017, um, Rome is just not stable anymore. It's just really tough. Like so many of my Let's Plays and things have been, sunk due to just standard random Rome Total War instability. And that's going to be squashed with
Yeah.
Rome Remastered. And, when I ported Chivalry, this will be a good lesson for a lot of people. When I ported Chivalry, I fixed so many, like, just regular coding errors when I was porting it because of the Rome Remastered logging system. And
Oh my God. We
yeah,
haven't even touched on that. That is a godsend.
yeah. So because of the Rome Remastered logging system, when you have a crash, it gives you the exact error. Most of the time, unless it's a very obscure sort of thing. But then you go in the file and it tells you where the problem is and you fix it, right? And it gives you an explanation of what kind of error it is. And then you go fix it. And I fixed so many problems in Chivalry, like from the original Chivalry, just coding errors, typos, things like that. And mods just getting ported just through the porting process are going to fix so many stability issues. Like I'm sure EB and Fourth Age and other huge mods like that have just random like typos that cause CTDs and no one ever figured it out, right? So
Oh
that's
my
going to
God.
be so important for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, and I think it's important for people to realize that yes, your favorites are going to be ported, but it should not stop there. Take those ported mods and continue them.
Yeah.
Take EB and continue it on remastered. EB2, like the EB2 guys out there, port EB2 to remastered. Just do it. Like, hear me out. You guys are clinging on to Medieval 2. It is now time to consider change because Medieval, you guys have a great mod and it's very popular, but Medieval 2 is now outclassed. And with all the possibility that what Rome Remastered offers, you got to do it. You just have to. And we at RIS will be open to helping. And, you need help, you need ideas, whatever. If you need to collaborate, use anything that we've used, talk to me.
And I'll put a link in the description to the
Yeah,
Rome
yeah.
Remastered
Or,
documentation because
yeah,
by Feral, because that will be so helpful to new
that
modders as
too.
well. Yeah.
Put our Discord link up there too. If anybody needs to get in contact with me or any of the other modders, we are actually starting to post a couple of the other mods um, on our server. Though they're small, it's just kind of like a channel, like saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." But if you want to follow it on there,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, like just EB2 guys, really consider going to remaster. Any of you that are clean to Rome Total War, please consider going to remastered. Um, if you are a person that decides that you want to complain about this or that, like a UI, like the UI. By the way, the UI is tip top now. They have actually made the UI very moddable, and you can now see your unit info and your building info basically take up your entire screen. So bigger than what original did. So guys, let the UI issues go. Okay, don't let that keep you from enjoying a real cool game. You will get used to it. I know there's differences, but for me, now that I play, or I play, I mod it, but I'm so used to the remastered UI that when I go into a mod like vanilla enhancement to get to like remember like a unit name or something, and I'm in there and I'm trying to click around, I'm like, gosh, this is this is just bad. And guys, you have to realize it's nostalgia that's keeping you. It's nostalgia that's keeping you tight to Rome to the War. There's memories, good times. You didn't get it exactly the way you wanted remastered. That's okay. It's it's still a new game, but there's so much more to do, and it's still the base game. Just that's my encouragement. And I hope there's not a lot of you out there that are like, I'm still not sold
Mm.
because going through everything we've gone through with Feral, like there's just no way you couldn't be sold on this game now. It's gonna give us everything. And I would definitely you can't obviously it's not gonna be in vanilla. I mean, we're not gonna
Yeah.
have like 100 sections in vanilla, but gotta wait for the modders to do their thing. But it's gonna be worth it, guys. It really is. So if you were on the fence or you were upset because we didn't get these day one, blah blah blah, and I'm an angry person and I'm gonna be negative because that's the choice I'm gonna make. If you're one of those people, really, really think to yourself, why not give it a shot? Like, because this is the best news that anybody could have asked for. Um,
For sure.
if you would have
For sure.
come to me 5, 10 years ago and be like, "Hey, one day they're gonna make this, they're gonna make a remaster, and it's not gonna be exactly finished on day one of release, but within what 4 months, 4 to 5 months of release, they are gonna make it 10 times better, 10 times more moddable, and 10 times more stable than the original Rome Total War." Would you take that? Who would say no?
Yeah.
So that's basically what I gotta say. I'm really hoping that this thing really jumpstarts everybody into coming into back to remastered and even Rome 2. In my humble opinion, Rome 2 doesn't stand a chance now, and I'm just gonna say that. And I don't care what anybody thinks. That's my opinion. I never liked Rome 2. I still don't like it. I think this thing is gonna blow Rome 2 out of the water once we are done with it as modders.
Yeah, we're gonna work hard, that's for sure. So I think we pretty much touched on almost everything we wanted to talk about. So I guess this will be a good place to stop the interview here. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Howell. Really great
Yeah, no problem.
discussion. I think it really informative for a lot of people and people who are maybe skeptical of the update, right? And maybe aren't aware of everything that's in it, but there's so much in there.
I'm trying to think of anything we left out. We touched on so many things. I'm
Yeah.
sure we forgot all kinds of stuff. But honestly, guys, he's gonna post it in the link below. Go take some time
Yeah.
and get a nice cup of coffee, snuggle up in a blanket, maybe play some nice music in the background, get some nice ambient lighting,
And read
and
the
go through
patch
that
notes.
log. Those patch notes, that's a book. I mean, you gotta sit down and you gotta take that all in. For if you were one of us and you were reading through these patch notes, we got them. It was like a whole experience. It was like tasting different flavors of food for the first time of your life. It was a very exciting experience, and um, definitely just take the time to read through those. Come out to the server, ask in the comments. We'll try to answer questions the best we can. Hopefully, some of the feral people are around to answer too. But guys, this is Christmas. This is Christmas times 10. Came early, and I wish you guys all the luck in modding and all the fun playing.
For sure. And we'll see you in the next one.